Could we see a big trade involving two Canadian teams between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Calgary Flames? We'll discuss a possibility on that. Plus, we have some news on the NHL waiver wire and a surprise benching in the Dallas organization. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. We'll get into the big trade rumor concerning the Leafs and the Flames here momentarily, but a couple other quick news items here first and foremost. Now, there's been a surprise benching in the Dallas Stars organization. Starting goaltender Anton Khudobin is going to be out for at least one game. I'm not sure how long they're going to decide to kind of punish him here, but apparently he was very late for practice, apparently really late. I'm not really sure exactly what happened or the full story, but when talking about the goaltending situation, all they said originally was that Khudobin wasn't going to be in the lineup and they were handling some kind of situation internally, and now there's been more information that has come out saying that he was super late for practice. So that's not a good look for the veteran goaltender. Obviously he's a big part of their team, so I would assume it would probably just be the one game, but I guess we'll see when the Stars get him back in the lineup. Now, of course, as we mentioned, there's some news on the NHL waiver wire. Not a lot of activity here as of late, but of course, the Oilers did place goaltender Troy Grosenick on the waiver wire yesterday, and he was claimed by the Los Angeles Kings. So, of course, that's where he came from. The Oilers got him previously from the Kings on the waiver wire just a number of weeks ago. So he goes back on waivers, and I believe in that situation where it hasn't been very long that the Kings have first dibs on him anyways. Plus, they still going by last year's standings until they hit 20 games of NHL action. And of course, the Kings were fairly near the bottom. So either way, I'm not sure if that rule did apply, but even if it didn't, they would have been able to land him anyway. So he goes back to where he started the season and signed a contract with Los Angeles at the beginning of the year. So for right now, he'll likely have to stay on their NHL roster, likely as their number 3 goaltender for the time being at least. Now, as I mentioned, there's also talk, and we've kind of vaguely gotten into this before, but there's certainly more reports out there, especially from Sportsnet and Chris Johnson, indicating that there is a possibility we could see a trade between the Maple Leafs and the Flames. Now, there's also talk that we could even have the Canucks looking to make a deal, and it could end up being with the Canadian team here as well. But for tonight, I want to focus on Calgary and Toronto. Now, of course, as we know, about a week ago on Saturday Headlines on Hockey Night in Canada, it was revealed by Friedman and Johnson that Sam Bennett had requested a trade. And of course, we've mentioned Bennett a few times in the past week since that's happened. Basically, the GM, Brad Treliving, felt he was kind of blindsided, didn't really have a lot of details and hadn't been told yet, but the agent decided to go through the NHL insiders on Sportsnet to kind of get this information public and place some pressure for a trade, but they hadn't even really discussed it with the GM here as of yet. Of course, they've since talked to Sam Bennett about this situation, and he has let it be known to them that he would prefer some new scenery and a fresh start. So they're trying to facilitate that. He's already been a healthy scratch on one occasion. It could end up being a healthy scratch here again. And of course, now they're trying to find a home for him is the reason that they believe here that he's being held out of the lineup. Now, the Flames aren't going to confirm that and say that he's being held out while they work on a trade. They've just been saying that he's being held out because of a coach's decision. But right before that, he had been promoted to the top line and actually had been doing pretty well, I thought. So I really don't see a scenario where that's actually legit. But I think they're just kind of holding him out for precautionary reasons while they work on a trade. Now, there has been some rumors, and when it first came out, though, that the Maple Leafs might have interest, and now it seems to be picking up a little bit. Of course, the Maple Leafs have been experimenting a lot with their bottom 6, especially their fourth line. Have had players that they've had to put through waivers so they can kind of have more intermingling between the taxi squad and the NHL roster, trying to figure out exactly what the perfect fourth line is. Of course, we saw a big night from Jason Spezza the other night getting a hat trick, which was quite amazing at his age and given where he's at in his career. Travis Boyd's been in and out, but he's been doing well lately as well. Obviously, they have some injuries now, too, with Thornton and Robertson, and things could change a bit in their lineup when they return. And obviously Nick Patan got in tonight against Vancouver, too, and he didn't look too bad. And they have a lot of guys that kind of fall into that category. They're getting a lot of good looks from Wayne Simmons, who's been in the lineup regularly as well, getting power play time. He's been playing a little higher in the lineup as well, especially with Thornton being out too. So they're kind of in a situation where Bennett could add some more grit and skill to the bottom six as they kind of continue to work that out. The rumored package going back to Calgary, as of right now at least, and this could change, but it'd be defenseman Travis Dermott and forward Pierre Engvall. Now, at this point, I think both of them are expendable. Dermott's been in and out of the lineup, but playing more often than not. They're at a point with Dermott, though, that they can certainly give more of that opportunity to Mikko Lehtinen, who's played relatively well, and Rasmus Sandin's been getting a little bit frustrated from what we've been hearing, that he hasn't been able to play yet. So they have more than enough capable defenders back there who can do a similar job to Dermott. And like I said, Pierre Engvall kind of played himself, out of a spot last year. He's had a bit of an opportunity this year. Didn't look too bad, but still hasn't been able to really grab a spot there. And Engvall's another guy that I do believe, especially after getting him an extension, that they'd be willing to part with. Now, if you put Engvall's contract along with Dermott's, the money is pretty close to working out there. Now, obviously, Toronto is extremely tight, so they wouldn't be able to take more money than what's going out, so there might have to be, a minimal amount of salary retention just to kind of level things out a little bit, and maybe there could be an extra incentive in there for that. I'm not sure, but the Flames and the Leafs are in a situation where this deal could make sense. Now, Calgary's blue line, for the most part, hasn't been too bad, but obviously, Dermott would be a guy who would just strengthen that top six a little bit more, and obviously could add a little extra depth back there. They've got a couple of guys that could easily be a 5, 6, or 7, so I'm not sure exactly where Dermott would slot. The top four are pretty well set, and then 5, 6, 7 spots I think are where he could end up slotting, but more often than not could play third pair minutes for the Flames. And like I said, Engvall could certainly do a similar type of role to Bennett, except you're not going to get the grit and the toughness, especially in the playoffs. Like, I really don't think the Flames want to move Bennett. I think they were kind of a little bit surprised and a little bit disappointed that he wants out. But I understand that he wants more opportunity. He wants to try to live up to that potential, being the 4th overall pick back a number of years ago, see if he can really find a way to get his offensive skills on display like he used to show in junior, and hasn't really been able to do it at a high level in the NHL yet. He's carved himself out a good career and a good regular spot, though, by playing a different kind of role. And I think he would like to get, a different role. As much as he's, done that to get himself in the lineup, I think he wants to see how much better he can do overall, and he needs to go elsewhere to make that happen. So, Engvall's not going to give you what Bennett would, but overall, at least he's a useful forward who can play bottom 6 minutes. You get Dermott, who's got, a fairly good future. He's still young, could evolve into a pretty solid defenseman. In Calgary's case as well, their captain, Mark Giordano, is getting up there close to the end of his contract as well and getting older. So, not to say that he's going to replace him, but, Giordano's still a big part of their top 4D, but obviously that's somebody who might not be there much longer. So to have an extra younger defenseman like Dermott in the lineup certainly could not hurt. Rasmus Andersson's pretty solid. Valimaki's pretty good. And obviously they brought over Nesterov from Russia, who's looked okay so far as well. To add a guy like Dermott in the mix to have a little bit more combination of youth with a decent amount of experience might be a good mix for both teams. The Leafs have been doing relatively well. Bennett would be like an extra piece for them to kind of rotate through with some of these other guys as they try to find that perfect mix and balance, as I said. And in Calgary's case, they're not doing the best so far. They could use a small shakeup, and if Bennett has to be the one to go and not be that distraction on the team anymore, because clearly now that it's out in the public and it's well confirmed that he wants to leave and wants a change of scenery, we've seen what this can do for other teams, like we saw going on in Winnipeg and Columbus. It just kind of gets that negativity and that distraction away. Then it might actually be beneficial as well. Get some good young talent from Toronto in there to shake things up. So let me know what your thoughts are. Do you see a trade between Calgary and Toronto working out to get Sam Bennett his trade request fulfilled? And obviously, like I said, there's other Canadian teams as well, including Victor Mete in Montreal. There's been Jake Virtanen in Vancouver. Other Canadian teams could end up trading with each other. Even though they're division rivals this year, it's going to be challenging because of the border closures and all the COVID isolation requirements when they travel and end up changing countries and stuff. So clearly, trading within Canada would be much easier, even though you're trading to a division rival. But I still think it's more likely to happen, and it very well could go down sometime ahead of the NHL deadline. And some of these teams are facing a lot of pressure too and need to get something done here soon to shake things up before their seasons get away from them. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.